Hi, my name's Chef Jenn Louis, and I'm here with produce and all sorts of food from Lift Up. They wanted to see me make dinner with all of the products from one of their food boxes. Each box has products for each individual that receives the box. It's tailored to their needs and their diet. What I got is what I'm gonna use. And I'm gonna give myself maybe 5, 6, 7 things that weren't in the box, like oil, salt and pepper, a few herbs from my garden, nothing too big. So all of these things can be used in these dishes. We're gonna make a frittata, and I'm gonna use spaghetti that came from the box. I have already cooked it, and this is some zucchini right here, some zucchini and these gorgeous little red Fresno chilies. I'm going to cook them just gently over kind of medium-high heat, and I'm gonna let it go for just a minute before I add my eggs. In the frittata, I am just gonna use eggs and a little bit of milk and some salt and pepper and use that as my base. I'm gonna go with 6 eggs for the size of my pan, but you can use whatever kind of pan you have and base the eggs off that. The zucchini is cooking really well and it looks really nice. On top of that, it's going to go some spaghetti. And then I'm just going to break my eggs with a little bit of milk, some salt. Why? Because salt makes things taste good. And some black pepper. All right, the one thing I'm gonna add is a little bit of oregano from my garden because it's gonna taste delicious. But you could use dried oregano, and most pantries have something like that in them. My eggs are mixed with the milk, just a little bit of milk. It's gonna help the texture to be a little softer than if I were just to use eggs. And the last thing that I'm going to add is this delicious goat cheese that I received in the box. And I'm just gonna take little lumps, and what I can do is when I slice the frittata, I can have a piece of fresh goat cheese in each of the pieces. All right, so that's pretty much it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stick this in the oven, let all of the eggs set up, and it'll get nice and puffy and golden. So, frittata, pasta frittata, so good. This is a great meal. If you want a little salad next to it, it's gonna be a little appetizer for me. So little tiny pieces. I'll let it cool just a little bit, but you can see some of the pasta got golden, some of the cheese. It's perfect. Did you know that Lift Up provides 310 boxes every month? What's cool about that is there's so much produce in these boxes and all this food that can be made from scratch that it only helps people's health and well-being. All right, on to the main course. There's so many things in this box, and I want to use as many as I can. So I'm gonna make some meatballs because everyone likes meatballs. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna finish cooking these peppers. There are green, orange, red peppers, onions, garlic. It's all sitting in here, and some spicy chilies, some of these red Fresno chilies. That's cooking down slowly. I'm gonna make some meatballs, and then I'm gonna use this sauce, this beautiful sauce that was given to us, add that into the peppers, and then I'm gonna braise the meatballs in the sauce. And it's gonna be so good. And toward the end, because we need some kind of starch, kind of really filling meal, I'm gonna add some potatoes I cooked whole in water. I peeled them, and we're just gonna break them into chunks, and then some chickpeas as well, so we have a little extra protein. And since it's such a dense dish, we'll be able to not eat too much, but have it for a few meals as well, which is always really nice. So this is cooking beautifully. I think that they're just about done. I'm gonna add some of this pasta sauce and it's seasoned with some herbs, but I'm actually gonna add also a few pieces of sage from my garden. Just, you know, one of those few things I'm gonna add to the box. And stirring that nicely around. That looks pretty good. Let's see if I need another jar or not, because that would be for another meal. All right, that looks good there. I'm gonna let that cook for a while we make these meatballs, which are beautiful. So what we wanna do with the meatballs is put everything that's gonna make them delicious together. And this actually works really well for a meatloaf recipe too. So I've got 2 eggs, a pound of meat. I've got some fresh breadcrumbs. I had a loaf of bread, so I made some fresh breadcrumbs. I like 2 teaspoons of salt per pound of ground meat, and that goes for ground pork or anything like that. So I'm gonna add that in, and then some freshly ground pepper as well. My sauce is starting to bubble. It looks really good. All right, we're good there. We're gonna come back to the meatballs in a second, but as my sauce goes, there's a little magic trick I like to do. So butter is the perfect complement to tomato. And the reason being is that butter has a silky softness. It's that lactic thing, and it melts into the tomato sauce, and it makes it really nice and delicate rather than more acidic. So I'm going to, with my spoon, just mix up this meat and the eggs and the breadcrumbs and the salt and the pepper, and I'm going to make little meatballs that'll poach in the sauce. Sauce is warm and it's ready, and it's time to add some meatballs. I like to use a little scoop so they're all the same size. Not necessary, but I'm going to. And I'm just gonna place them in the sauce, and they're gonna cook until the meatballs are cooked through, then a little further till they're tender. All right, all the meatballs are in here. It looks delicious to me. And we're gonna let them cook really slowly for a little bit. It's totally done, it's ready. We're ready, it's so good. The way that I know that is the sauce is reduced a little bit, all that flavors come together, and the meatballs, they've kind of lost that like hard toughness, like when you first cook them, they've gotten kind of soft and silky from sitting in that sauce. And they're gonna pick up some of the flavors, it's gonna be so good. So, 2 last steps to finish this. One, we're gonna add some potatoes, and we're also gonna add some of these garbanzo beans. The potatoes, I got them whole and raw, and I put them in water, and I poached them really slowly until they were really tender, and then I peeled them, and all I'm gonna do is take little pieces, or big pieces, in chunks, and sit them in the sauce, and they're gonna absorb some of the flavor from the sauce, and they're gonna get silky and delicious. So big chunks of potatoes, and then we're gonna add the beans. All right, that's looking really, really good. It's nice to be able to stir around, turn over the potatoes a little bit so both sides get coated in the sauce. I get all of the scent of those peppers that I cooked down at the beginning. Now they smell great with the tomato. If you have a big piece of crusty bread or a piece of toast, you can eat that all together, but it looks really, really good. And then if I'm eating it, what I would like is a little bit of chopped up basil, and then just a little drizzle of olive oil. And I'd say that's a pretty good meal. How great is this? During that pandemic, the volunteers are writing little notes to be put into the boxes with food, so when they're delivered, we keep a really nice sense of connection with the residents. What are we having for dessert? Rice pudding. In the box is a bag of rice. Rice can be used for so many things, but rice pudding is a fun way to have a nutritious dessert. So In my pan, I'm going to take some of this delicious rice. I have my rice, I have some sugar and some milk, and that's where we're gonna start. So some sugar, whoops, some rice, and the milk. And that's gonna cook until most of the milk is absorbed. It's no longer liquidy, but it has more of a pudding texture. And that's gonna take just a little while. So I'm gonna add some cherries because cherries were in the box and that's so amazing. But I don't want the pits in them. So I take my old school peeler and I put it down right into the top, and all I do is I put it into the middle of the cherry and the pit comes out. It's amazing. So I'm gonna cut a bunch of cherries, cut them in half, and then throw them in while it's warm, and they'll just slightly cook the cherries. It's gonna be great. A little bit of cardamom. If you like cinnamon better, add cinnamon to add just a little bit of warm flavor. There's one more thing I'd like to add. Again, a little bit of the soft butter. And the soft butter is gonna melt right into the rice pudding, giving it a really creamy, creamy texture. And then the final step, have a bite. It's pretty good. Playing with food is really fun, and having a good meal is really fun. But what's really important is to make sure that everyone who needs a good meal has one. Thanks, Lift Up.